Um, Good morning, the Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Senator Adeleke Olorunnibe Mamora. Good morning, the Honorable Minister of State, Chief Henry Ilechukwu Iko. Good morning, Chairman PCT and my distinguished members of the State House Press Corps and other distinguished stakeholders watching us online. Let me apologize for the late commencement of today's program, the 71st session in the series of State House briefings organized by the Presidential Communications team. Due to some forces, we have to start a bit late today. You know, it's not usual with us. But now that we are starting, let's get the job done. Our guest this day, as I said earlier, is the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, a medical doctor, a former Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, a former Managing Director of National Inland Waterways Authority, a former Minister of State for Health, and now main Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. This is a man that a few months ago, while celebrating his Platinum Jubilee, that's the 70th birthday, the President Muhammadu Buhari, in recognition of his roles in this administration, said, and I quote, "I consider Dr. Mamora a co-traveler in my political journey. Having served as Deputy Director General of APC Presidential Election Campaign Committee in 2015 and 2019 respectively," he continued, "Dr. Mamora cannot therefore be separated from my political success, as he worked with his heart, mind, and strength for electoral success. Dr. Mamora did not only work for the success of the party, he transferred the hard work to the ministries where he has served. I'm sure we all remember how the Ministry of Science, how the Ministry of Health effectively tackled the COVID-19 pandemic about 2-3 years ago. The minister has been reassigned to the Ministry of Science and Technology, and Innovation, and he has also transferred those the dint of hard work that he put into the Ministry of Health into this ministry. Without talking too much, as far we have already lost some time, it's my pleasure to invite now the minister to speak with us on the strides of the ministry, at least for the period that he's been there, so that Nigerians can know what the ministry is doing and how the ministry has contributed to the overall success of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. Honorable Minister, please.
Thank you very much, the MC of this event. Let me acknowledge my colleague in the ministry, the man that I christened authentic red cap chief of the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, Chief Henry Iko. Thank you very much. And of course, my friends at the top table here, the Special Advisor to Mr. President on Media, that's Femi Adesina, that I've known for quite a long time now. And of course, SSA to Mr. President as well. Sheo Garba. Well, we've also been together for quite a while, particularly even before this administration came into power. And to all of you, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm glad to be here. And thank you for what you're doing as members of the Fourth Estate of the Realm. Permit me to just start on a note of apology as the officials of the ministry, from the permanent secretary to directors and heads of agencies that are supposed to be here, have been held up. The bureaucratic bottleneck, so to speak. They've been at the Villa Gate for over an hour from the information available to me. But I do hope that they will join us. But we felt that it would be inappropriate to keep you waiting, since you also have a mandate as to when you file your report. So, thank you very much. I had thought that we were able to do some kind of PowerPoint presentation, which unfortunately we cannot, because those who are supposed to make that possible are not even here now. But then, I'm sure we will still be able to get along. And I will try as much as possible not to bore you with unnecessary or undue details. Because the whole essence of my presence here today, on behalf and with my colleague and officials of the ministry, is to just give you an insight into what the Buhari administration has been able to do in the last 8 years, commencing from 2015 to this point in time, within the context of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. And in doing this, I want to thank the MC once again that, he's made it clear that my colleague and I came into the ministry just barely 10 months ago, precisely July of 2022. So we are relatively new in the ministry. Well, I was in health from 2015 as Minister of State before I ported, courtesy of Mr. President, to this Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. So, by way of outline, what I have here is the background, the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, institutional and organizational arrangement, the Federal Ministry of Science and Tech domain of operation, that is the ecosystem, what we have done in terms of coordination of activities. Then you have the policy and legal frameworks in support of STI, the Science, Technology and Innovation Ecosystem Development and Management. Then, of course, the Federal Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation policies and programs and implementation. Then achievements in terms of the key issues like employment generation, contribution of the science, technology, and innovation to gross domestic product between 2015 and 2022, and Nigeria's drive towards enhanced global competitiveness ranking. And of course, what the ministry has been able to do with respect to support for agriculture, nutrition, and food security, the support for Medicare and health of Nigerians, the support for academic and education, as well as capacity building, support to energy and power development. That's very critical to our economic advancement. And of course, advancing the frontier of manufacturing and business in support to national defense and internal security. That's very important as well, especially when you understand that our security and welfare shall be the purpose of government, and that is one of the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy as enshrined in the Constitution under Section 14, subsection 2. Of course, other things to mention, which we must not forget, the Nigerian Science, Technology and Innovation Television, the Technology Park, and other specific achievements. And then we'll look at the issue of funding and financing of science, tech, and innovation programs and projects. Then the concluding remarks and the way forward. Except that I'm not too sure how much time I have. I don't want to spend the whole day. How many? 20, 30 minutes. Thank you for restricting me. That means that I have to move fast. So, having given you this bit of outline, we do know that Nigeria is a blessed country. And when I say blessed country, and I mean in all ramifications. We're blessed with not just the human resources available to us, we're blessed with natural resources. It's a pity that, like I said, we don't have the projection so that you can appreciate the mineral resources available to us, because there has been a mapping of the resources, mineral resources available to us across the country. And every state, and I repeat, every state of this country, of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, is blessed with one mineral resource or the other. And most of these mineral resources that we are blessed with have not even been tapped at all. Diamond, gold, lithium, name it. We are blessed. We are blessed with arable farmland. We are blessed with extensive water resources that we have not taken advantage enough, adequately. So we are blessed so much with all this. And that's just by way of background. We are also blessed, I think it's important to mention that, we are also blessed with climatic conditions. We are lucky that we don't have cyclone, we don't have earthquakes, we don't have all these vagaries of the climate that could limit us, extreme of weather conditions. We are blessed to the point that we do not suffer from all these negativities in terms of weather conditions. So that puts us in a better state as to what we can do and what is available to us. I think it's also important to mention what our ranking is. We rank first among 10 top African countries in terms of our GDP, and of course, it's the 7th position in terms of the economy, even though by way of our per capita income, we're 7th, and yet we have a very large economy. But I'm not going to bother you, like I said, about all this. So let's try and limit ourselves as much as possible, because of the time constraint, to what have we been able to do. But before going into all that, let me make it clear as well that what has been established without any iota of doubt is that a country is as developed as the development of the R&D, research and development. That is, what determines your advancement as a country is a matter of how much you have put on your research and development. And let me give a good example. If you have diamond in your backyard, or you have gold, you have to dig the ground and bring out the stuff before you can work on it through the process of research and development, before you can get that glittering substance that you call diamond. And R&D, research and development, is not cheap at all. So if we are not doing well enough, it's because we are limited in terms of our research and development. Of course, you know that the ministry has about 17 parastatals that through which we achieve our goals. The parastatals, or the agencies which are research-based, they are the ones that put in place the implementation of our policies and make the difference in what we do. At the headquarters, what we do is to put these policies in place, and then we wait for implementation by the various, and this is what we mean by our institutional arrangement. Then, of course, in terms of presidential mandate that we are given from 2015, one is to implement in policies the 2022 National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy. The second is to rationalize, revitalize, and reposition the Federal Research Institutes. And of course, the third is to ensure that research output gets to the market, because that's where they become useful to us. And of course, the establishment of technology parks across the country. Next is to collaborate with the private sector to create a large number of well-paid jobs. And of course, implement Mr. President's June 12th proclamation, the promise to put 100 million Nigerians out of poverty within the next 10 years. So we have our contribution to that effect. And in all this, what we hope to achieve is to move from resource-based economy to knowledge-based. This is important. I always say that there is no resource that cannot be exhausted. you can just use this resource or resources, you can use them up. But one resource that you cannot exhaust is knowledge. Knowledge, the more you know, the more you want to know. It's inexhaustible. And that is what our goal is, knowledge-driven economy. That's what we want to achieve. So having said all this, I'm sure I have covered quite a number of issues, on the outline that I talked about. But let's now look at specifics. Let's look at specifics, because that is what is really important at the end of the day. In looking at these specifics, I will start with sorry that we don't have the projection of these issues, but let me see. It will be easier to go by what is projected for you to see, so that you can better appreciate what we are talking about in this regard. Right. From 2015 to 2022, the nominal GDP grew from 94.4 trillion naira to 199.34 trillion naira. And the STI sector, that is science, tech, and innovation, improved from 3.93 trillion in 2015 to 5.35 trillion naira by 2022. Invariably, the STI, that is science, tech, and innovation, contribution to nominal GDP is 4.2 in 2015, but dropped, for obvious reasons, to 2.7 by 2022. Essentially, as a result of strike, particularly ASU, and then, of course, COVID-19 pandemic. But the real GDP at 69.2 trillion in 2015 recorded 2.5 trillion for STI component, which is a contribution of 3.7% by 2022. This trend analysis shows an annual average of STI contribution of 3.6% and 3.5% for nominal GDP and real GDP. Like I said, you'll have been able to appreciate this better if you were to have, a projection of what I'm talking about. It is inspiring that in real terms, the science, technology, and innovation contribution enhanced in position of ranking among 46 specific sectors of the economy. Because the STI sector, that is considering the activity sectors of 46 to a peaked, the STI sector of the economy was in the 11th position in the nominal GDP and 9th position in the real GDP for 2022. So in terms of enhanced global competitiveness, Nigeria was 127 in position out of 140 countries, but by the latest report, the ranking has improved to 115 out of 140. That is in terms of our competitiveness in the global arena. So that's, again, on general performance of the STI sector. But let's now move to the things that are very, very important to us. So first, I will mention agriculture. agriculture, nutrition, and food security. Now, you recall that just recently, a document was released, and it was celebrated, the Nigeria 2050 Agenda. Now, in that document, the estimate in terms of our population will be about 350 million by 2050. The estimate for now is about 200 million. Now, one of the things that remains so critical for us to sort out is food. Because in my part of the country, the saying is that when you are able to satisfy food need, then you have eliminated poverty. So, we are paying attention to improved food output to ensure that we go into food security. And that's one of the things that we're trying to achieve. So that's why we have what we call TACA. TACA is false yam for the production of starch and glucose syrup, which will reduce the pressure on yam, cassava, and maize for the production of industrial raw materials. We've also been able to develop the extraction of glucose syrup and ethanol from sweet sorghum. Again, we've been able to boost agricultural program through the development of improved seeds and seedlings that are distributed to farmers. And of course, this includes cowpea, rice, ginger, banana, plantain, rice, cassava, sugar, and what have you. Nigeria has been known to have a very bad record in terms of post-harvest losses. So one of the things that we've been able to do in the ministry through our agencies is to develop seeds that are resistant to pests, that are resistant to flooding, so that we can have greater yield. But in addition, we've been able to put in place methods of preserving harvest, so that this harvest will not go rotting. We have the fabrication of standard processing machine to process onion and garlic into flakes, thereby preserving them. The ministry, through the Raw Materials Research and Development Council program on development, they have also been able to increase the daily milk yield of our cows from meager 1 to 1.5 liters of milk per cow to over 15 liters of milk per cow per day. We've also been able to develop moringa fortified livestock feed for fish and for aquaculture and environmentally friendly insecticide. That's by CHESCO. Of course, I must not fail to mention that FIRO has done a lot in terms of developing various sport drinks for from indigenous foods, and of course, ready-to-use therapeutic foods for the management of severe acute malnutrition. You know, we have a very high percentage of this acute malnutrition. We've been able to develop some protein-based ready-to-use therapeutic foods from Peru. Of course, NARIC, one of our agencies too, has been able to develop nitrogen urea fertilizer. Through FIRO as well, been able to develop rice thresher, and of course the stoning machine, that is, remove a lot of stones from rice. Coconut extraction machine, coconut oil extraction machine, yam pounding machine, and all that. All these products from some of our agencies. Of course, dryer from FIRO, from SHESCO, all these are also there to support our agricultural production. In the area of Medicare and health of Nigerians, of course, a lot of this came to the front burner during the COVID era. So many things were developed from our indigenous companies under our various agencies, like the disinfectant sprayer tunnel, sanitizers, disinfectant, of course, solar-powered smart hand washing machines, and of course, you recall that in those days of COVID, there was scrambling for ventilators and face masks and all that. But a lot of these things were developed by our people, our agencies in the ministry. Then I can tell you that as a medical doctor, Nigeria has a very large population of sickle cell disease patients and, of course, carriers. So, to that extent, I can tell you that we've been able to develop products from plants that combat, or they are anti-sickling in nature, and therefore reduce the number of attacks, and of course that usually result in sickle cell anemia. So much has been done in that area. We've also been able to develop antihypertensive drinks from local herbs and materials. Then one important drug that is very expensive, it's called lovastatin. Lovastatin is a drug that reduces cholesterol. And you know that cholesterol is injurious when it is above the limit of normal. This has been developed from oyster mushroom. Of course, we must also look at what is common to us: tuberculosis, Ebola, hepatitis. These are common things that we have around us. And I can say that through our molecular diagnostic laboratories, we've been able to develop modes of identifying or making diagnosis. Because the first step in the management of a patient is to make right diagnosis. If you don't make the right diagnosis, you cannot treat what you don't know. So that's why this ability to make diagnosis is very important, which some of our agencies have been able to do in terms of their discovery. Again, NASA, which is a National Space Research and Development Agency, just recently we consummated a PPP arrangement where we will establish a planetarium and space museum, and this will create minimum of 5,000 direct jobs and about 20,000 indirect jobs as well. So that is already in place in terms of job creation. Well, in the area of energy, you know the global issue now is energy transition, moving from the fossil fuel to renewable energy. And we are so blessed. Wind, solar, hydro, name it. And so much is being done in this area. I cannot start listing, but just for the record, about 7.5 megawatts of solar electricity generation here in Kashi, FCT Abuja. Again, the deployment of 5 kilowatts kinetic turbine to supply electricity to Goody Hamlet in Nasarawa State, and of course prepaid electricity energy meter and high efficiency LED energy saving bulbs. All these have been products from one of our agencies, Energy Commission of Nigeria. It's also important to mention that we've been able to develop what we call modular digesters for use in power generation, for household cooking, and for the production at small, medium enterprises. And PRODA has also been at Project Development Agency in Enugu, been able to develop portable battery charger, among others. I think it's also important to mention that through our ECN, that is Electricity, the Energy Commission rather, of Nigeria, it became the first African country, Nigeria, to launch the updated 2050 energy calculator. What this does is it enables energy policymakers to analyze various energy system configurations into long-term future and the resulting greenhouse gas emissions. As you are able to predict through this invention that we've been able to do. We're also able to predict what happens through geographical information system in terms of what the weather conditions will be and what it could result. You're able to predict flooding and when it is likely to come. In the manufacturing area, of course, I think it's also important to say that the production of vehicle speed limiter, which was done in collaboration with the Federal Road Safety Corps. You know, road crash is a major challenge for us in this country. So the speed limiter is such that can limit the speed of any vehicle, because excessive speed is a major source of road crashes. So that has been done, of course. It's a joint effort between CHESCO and the Federal Road Safety Corps. Then, of course, NILES is our leather industry or leather agency. NILES has been able to do a lot in terms of supporting the boots of soldiers, and their footwear, and of course other leather goods that they use in terms of their wares. We already have in place an MOU that we need to work on so that it can take us to greater height. Of course, it's important to mention the support for the national defense and internal security. So much has been done in this area, and I think specifically NASA has done a lot in this area in terms of support. We have satellite that will give us information and prediction about what happens in terms of weather situation. It can also source and get information about movement of, those who are out there to harm us one way or the other. Through NASA, we've been able to have what we call the autonomous area vehicles. It's almost similar to drone, that is drone technology, which is one area that attention is being drawn to right now because of what we're capable of achieving in this regard. I mentioned what NILES, that is our Leather Institute, has been able to do in terms of military wares and textiles that they use. Of course, I had mentioned the military rations as well and hygienic drinks which come from FIRO and some of our other agencies. Well, one can go on and on. I think I've been able to talk to you in the area of defense, in the area of food, in the area of agriculture, in the area of health, what the ministry through agencies have been able to do. Then just not long ago, we were able to put on stream our STI television station, where we felt there was need for us to put a television station in place so that we can report ourselves in our own way, give out the information that we need to give out to help the growth of science, technology, and innovation in our country, and of course enhance the STEM education itself. We can give out our own information, unadulterated. So it's on stream, it's functioning right now, what we call the Nigerian Science Television, Science, Technology, and Innovation Television Station. Again, it's a pity that we don't have it, you will have seen that projected. Then I think it's also very important to mention that as at the moment, we have the raw materials research and development Council National Technology and Innovation Center with so many pilot plants on engineering fabrication, so many of them, and I wish that someday we could get you to visit that center at NASA premises, where you can see a lot of plants, prototypes. Pilot plant for the production of hydrated lime that is used in making petroleum, sugar refining, and agricultural applications, and of course food separation and all that. We also have pilot plants for the production of pharmaceutical grade starch that is used in pharmaceuticals and the food industry, in cosmetics, in adhesives, confectionaries, and beverages. All these are there right now for you to see. Again, it's a pity all this will have been projected for you to see. There's also a pilot plant for the production of caustic soda, and then of course calcium carbonate used in soap production, oil drilling, white liquor for separating. So many things in industrial setting. Then, of course, methanol and school laboratory chemicals, all these are available. You see pilot plants that can, manufacture all these things so that those who need them, like the investors, can now take this to the market. We also have the R&D pilot plant for the production of copper sulfate with a range of applications from building to construction and of course, chemical and agricultural industries. There's also the plan for the production of glucose syrup and ethanol and sweet sorghum. All these are used in food, soft drink, confectionery, and the pharmaceutical industries. They also have pilot plan for the production of soap noodles used in soap, textile, and cosmetics. They also have pilot plans for the production of pharmaceutical grade talc used in ceramics, cosmetics, and all these various pilot plans are there for you to see. Like I said, I wish we had the projection so that you can see all this. So you have so many, they are there so that people can just look at them and then know that we have the capacity to do that. The pilot plan for castor oil and the derivatives, and which will reduce these derivatives about 50% in terms of import. So I know my time is far running. Let me just try and round it up. It's also important to mention that we have engineering fabrication and workshop for various things that we have. Right. I think it's very important to mention, because that's one of the mandates we are giving. Just a few weeks ago, we were able to do the groundbreaking at Chesco premises of our science park. This is very, very important for us, because once you have that park, it's going to be developed in phases, about 3 phases. But we've been able to start it. And as they say, in a journey of 1,000 miles, there has to be the first step. So we have taken the first step through the groundbreaking, which we had just about 3 weeks ago at Chesco. And this is with, it's through a kind of PPP arrangement with an investor across the Atlantic development. So one of these days too, we will have the opportunity to take you there so that you can see these things live. I should not fail to mention that when you look at our allocation to the STI sector, the Science, Tech, and Innovation, under the Buhari administration from 2015. Again, I wish we have the projector so that you can see it's been on the rise. Like in 2015, what we had was about 30 billion naira, but as of 2022, what we have is about 203 billion naira. That is a gradual rise from 2015 to 2022. So that's, we must give commendation to Mr. President for appreciating the need for that. Again, regarding the funding, there had been some innovative measures under the Buhari administration to fund the STI sector better. For example, just about two years ago, Mr. President made a pronouncement at our expo that a percentage of the GDP, 0.5% of the GDP, will be devoted to funding the R&D. I told you earlier on that funding is a critical step and it's a major thing that has to be in place if we must benefit from R&D. Again, I can also announce to you that it never happened before, but right now under the Buhari administration, TED Fund is now allocating some funding to research institutions even beyond the universities, also are allocating some funding to research institutions under the science, technology, and innovation. Right. So, in conclusion, Nigeria's future is full of optimism as long as we keep faith and leverage on our enormous potentials. But potentials will remain potentials until we turn these potentials into realities. We're in the age of the fourth industrial revolution, where everything, and I mean everything now, is a function of science, technology, and innovation. Of course, arising from the building blocks, which is the STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And in so doing, what we want to be sure that we are bringing everybody on board. That is, there has to be inclusiveness. And that's why we're reaching out to everyone in the system, including children, women, men, even the physically challenged, because there is ability in disability. So we're working hard to ensure that we're not left behind in this fourth industrial revolution. And we are looking at how best we can do things on our own. That is, the capacity we have within, which is very, very important, rather than importing technologies that we are unable to manage ourselves. That's why we had to do technology and needs assessment, so that we know what we have and what we can do with what we have. But to do this, we need to show courage, we need to show discipline, we need to show commitment, we need to believe in ourselves, because nobody will do it for us. We must do this on our own. We also need to work with the subnationals, the states, the local government. We need to work with the industries. We need to work with the academia. We need to work with the civil societies. We need to work with the organized private sector. We need to work with everyone across board, so that we can get to where we want to be. I did say that we are so blessed, but we are yet to harness all the potentials available to us. So, I believe that within the short period, so to speak, that I have, I've been able to put across to you what the Buhari administration has been able to do in the last 8 years of this administration, and we are at the twilight of this administration, due to end in just about 2 weeks' time. Distinguished and gentlemen, I cannot draw the curtain on this presentation without paying tribute to our predecessors in office, and particularly Dr. Ogbunaya Onu and the Minister of State, because they had been there, as Mohammed, had been there before us, and they had been able to put certain things in place. And when we came, just under 10 months now, we tried to develop on what we met on ground. It has not been a rosy story, but then the challenges will remain. And what we are called upon as leaders is to solve problems, is to surmount challenges. And that we have been able to do to the best of our ability within this short period. So we want to commend the initial work done by our predecessors in office. I want to seize this opportunity to thank my colleague, Honorable Minister of State, who has been very, very helpful We've worked together seamlessly as colleagues in the ministry. I want to thank the Permanent Secretary, the directors in the ministry, and of course, our able heads of agencies, the DGs, who have done a lot to make our job easier in the ministry. And of course, I want to say that we have kept our eyes on the ball. It has not been easy, but we've tried not to waver. I've been encouraged by the generosity of support from everyone in the ministry and, of course, the unions, because we have had a relative peace in the ministry. We've not really had much of a looter in the ministry. But I cannot but thank you, media representatives, especially because whatever we do that is not reported out there, like I always say, it's like winking in the dark. And when you wink in the dark, no one sees you. Thank you for the support. And of course, I know that yours is a constitutional role to report and take the good news out there. Even though there are times that the bad news are also reported. But I always remind myself that for you, dog bites man is no news. It is when man bites dog that becomes a news. But I never fail to add that when we do well, report us. When we don't, tell us so that we can change. It's been an opportunity for me, very highly appreciated. Mr. President has considered me fit and proper person to head this ministry at this point in time. And of course, in conjunction with my colleague, Honorable Minister of State. But there's always a time to come in and there's a time to depart. And just a question of 2 weeks or less, we will take our exit. And like everyone, at some point in time, we will become men and women of yesteryears. But what we need to do is to ensure that we put something on ground by way of legacy so that posterity can record that for us. Our steps might have appeared slow, but surely those steps are steady. And my prayer is that we will get to the promised land. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Olorunniyi Mamora. Within the space of time available to him, he's been able to do justice. At least if I didn't pick anything, I picked the fact that the ministry has been very supportive in the administration's agenda of self-sufficiency in food production, assisting Medicare, and also food production, Medicare, and education. Yes, with this delivery, I will expect some of our colleagues to either agree or say that they heard most of the things the minister has spoken about, or they seek further clarification. Honorable Minister, will yield the floor to them to ask you a few questions. Or we fully understand? Okay, Leon takes the first question, John Bosco 2, Gloria 3, Code 4. After the 4, I will review whether we'll have any other question. John Bosco. No, Leon, Dr. Leon.
Good morning, sirs. My name is Dr. Leon Usigbe of the Nigerian Tribune. The Honorable Minister, sir, you have told us so many things that have been developed by several agencies under the ministry, such as head drinks, anti-hypertension drinks, some implements, agric implements, and all that. Well, I just want to ask, when you develop these things, what do you do with them? Do you, for instance, have a plan of mass production to make them readily available to Nigerians for everyday use? If not, why? What are the constraints? Thank you.
Yeah, the Honorable Minister, John Bosco Abakuru is my name. I work for Vanguard. In your outline, sir, you mentioned the support to national defense and internal security. And I think in other climes, you use science and technology to tackle insecurity. But sir, in this year's support, why is it difficult that despite the support, as I've marshaled out, Nigeria is facing a lot of insecurity here and there, and some of the bandits, kidnappers, terrorists, it's sometimes difficult, to track them, though our military is doing a lot. So in this sense, in summary, sir, how have you used your office to tackle insecurity in the country, or to help in tackling insecurity in the country? Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Gloria Omezoke from Channels TV. So the previous minister talked about stopping the importation of toothpick, pencils, and all of that, and then went ahead to talk about other innovative breakthroughs they're hoping to achieve. So of course, we're all attuned to a certain level of expectation, and I'm not saying they didn't take steps towards it, but we don't see manifest impact of what he talked about. And so I'm wondering, in terms of food production in particular, how, in what ways have you really impacted, in this particular sector, agriculture sector? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. My name is Umar Aliu. I report for Code Radio International. Honorable Minister, sir, the gains of science and technology to mankind cannot be quantified, but it comes with its merit and demerit. My question centered around agriculture, most especially GM food. Nigeria's population is expanding exponentially, and science and technology is the only solution to our growing demand for food. Now we have, through innovation of science and technology, we have genetically modified seed. And this seed comes with some stringent measures attached to them. If you see our grains, if you harvest them, you keep them for 10 years, you can replant them. But most of these genetically modified seeds will tie you down to the producers of those seeds. They come with specific fertilizer, pesticide, and thereby making Nigeria dependent on such producers of seed. What is the policy of Ministry of Science and Technology towards protecting Nigeria health-wise, exploitation-wise in that regard, sir?
That's the first batch of questions, Honorable Minister. After this first batch, please, we need to end this thing by 12:20. Max. Right. It works. This one works.
What's better? Okay. Right. Thank you very much. I was tempted to say thank you very much, my media colleagues, until I reminded myself that thank you very much for those of you that have had the opportunity to fire the first shots. Well, thank you that in spite of the limitation of not having projection and all that, you were still able to pick at least some of those things. Thank you so much. So starting from Dr. Sigbe, yes, I think your question is very relevant. That what do we do with all these inventions? It's a question that we have also been pondering about. It will interest you that virtually all our agencies have come up with one invention or the other. But the challenge has always been taking these research outputs to the market. Because until and unless we're able to take this to the market, we will not be seen to have been able to do something. But gradually, that's why I said in my closing remarks that our steps may be slow, but surely they are steady. But we need to do more in terms of having that handshake between the research, institutions and the market through investors and those who are interested, capital, people that move around with their capital and will want to invest. So it's a challenge that we know we are still facing, which we need to do more about. There's so many outputs that are still gathering dust on the shelves in various agencies. So what we are doing is to continue to engage, to continue to have fora for this engagement where we can bring all stakeholders together. We're fond of talking about this triple helix. It is the agencies, the academia, the industries, and all that. So that we can have this interaction and people can know that, look, we need this, let's take this to market. Then we are also looking at how we can compel, as it were, maybe through legislation, that once these things are available, and they are, particularly if they are patents, because we also need to protect the intellectual property of the inventors, then we can just push them to market. So the challenge is about getting investors that will take these inventions out there. And these things can then be useful to our people. Again, we also have a duty in terms of our own nationalism. One of the challenges, again, is we have developed taste that is not local, rather taste that is alien. We have this tendency to want to get something from abroad. Again, I think government will need to really come hard in terms of maybe total banning, as it were, of things that we have capacity to do locally. That is where nationalism comes in. So we are pushing, we appreciate that, but we are not holding our arms because it's not the best for us in the circumstance to just have inventions that are gathering dust on the shelves. So we are trying to do our best in that regard. John Bosco, your concern is also well appreciated, that in spite of all these claims, particularly regarding security, what we have been able to put in place by the various agencies, particularly NASDA, that has done a lot in this regard. Why are we still unable to solve the problems? Well, the problem of insurgency in particular, banditry, and all that, they are like what you call, guerrilla or a typical warfare. I'm happy that you acknowledge the efforts of our military and other security forces. So, unfortunately, again, security issues are not such that you discuss in the open. But I can assure you that with a number of things that some of our agencies have done, I mentioned the drone technology on unmanned air vehicle and on all that. And in fact, one of our agencies came up with a kind of device that you can know the kind of imprint on ground and where it is coming from in terms of certain issues and all that. But this is a security thing. But again, we need to be able to commercialize these things to the point that it will now become, it's not just about putting it out there without it being commercialized. So again, the challenge is commercialization of some of these inventions, which is also a function of funding. So the funding issue is also a challenge. The other thing is proper collaboration, among the various agencies. One of the challenges, again, we still tend to work, in silos. So, but then your concern is noted, and some certain efforts have been put in place, but not until we are able to say yes, we have reduced the level of this insecurity, but we need to eliminate, and that's what we are working to. Yes, I do know that our NOTAP agency, that's Nigerian Office for acquisition, that's NOTAP DG is even here. Maybe he may want to even talk about this. Yes. You may want to even say something on this, because that's the repository of the various invention in terms of the patents. So maybe you just want to throw in more light on...
Sorry.
Yes.
With your kind permission, the two honorable ministers and members of the high table,
Yes.
We regulate inflow of foreign technology into the country, and we're expected also to encourage and promote development of locally generated technologies so that we gradually reduce dependency on imported technologies. If we give 10 approvals today, between 7 to 8 are on software. And this is the area where Nigeria spends a lot of money in terms of payment of licensing fee. So we sat down with the relevant stakeholders and see what can we do to save Nigeria from this reliance. So we came out with what we call a local vendor policy. For us to register any technology transfer agreement on software, we insist that a Nigerian IT company must be involved in the deployment of that software, must be involved in the maintenance of that software. The strategy is, if you involve intelligent Nigerians in the deployment, you involve them in the maintenance of that software. Whether the owners of those softwares like it or not, good part of it would be captured by Nigerians. And since licensing is normally a one-off payment, there is another caveat that continuously milk Nigeria. After every year of usage of that software, we pay between 12 to 23% of the licensing fee as maintenance fee. We insist that if a Nigerian IT company is involved in the deployment of that software, is involved in the maintenance of that software, 40% of that ATS should be paid to Nigerians as compensation. So it's a double-edged sword. And for the owners of softwares, if they want their product to work perfectly in the country and compete, they have no option but to train Nigerians on the application of this software. So this virtually develop capacities. With the 40% Nigerians IT companies are getting, they've been able to acquire infrastructure. I'm glad to say now Nigerians have started exporting software across Africa. This is a significant development. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
Between 2019, we have assisted. It's not the responsibility of NOTAP to register patent. We saw a gap. If you come up with any innovation or invention that is not patentable, no any private sector would put his own money where the intellectual asset is not protected. So we saw a gap. So in 2019, we felt the need for us to assist Nigerian innovators and inventors to protect their IP. Between 2019 to date, we assisted Nigerians to acquire 379 patent certificates. This is our contribution to the innovation system. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. That's the DG of Nigeria Office of Technology Acquisition and Promotion. Now, so Gloria, channels your question has to do with the impact in the agricultural sector. Well, I can assure you that even when you look at what that sector is, don't forget we used to address ourselves as monoproduct economy. But Nigeria is no longer that. In fact, it will interest you to know that oil is not the major earner for us now, I mean, of our revenue. We're having a lot now from agriculture. And it's also a function of the various improvements. I mentioned the issue of seed and, of course, post-harvest losses that a lot of technologies have been put in place to limit all that. So that is something, and we're almost self-sufficient in rice production and a few other things right now. And to that extent, you don't forget that what President Muhammadu Buhari said and still saying is that we must eat what we grow and grow what we eat. And that's a very important thing to hold. So gradually, and for as long as we continue to get our people involved and give them the right education, we will get there. I think that's my response for your question. Umaru, thank you very much. You mentioned this issue of genetically modified seed and all that. And happily enough, you also mentioned that all these things have implications. And we don't want to be tied to the apron strings of any foreign power or foreign. So that's why I also mentioned at the beginning that we need to tell ourselves that we can do it. And really we can do it. And just recently, we put in place a committee. Because when you talk about this genetically modified food or what have you, you must also look at what we call the ethics. That's why recently I think the DG of bioethics is here. We probably want to shed some light. Briefly, we put in place a committee because you always have ethical issues. Ethical issues are involved in all these things, so that people don't just go and be putting out things that are injurious to the health of people, maybe not in the immediate, but in the future. Just briefly about this bioethics.
Okay, sir. With your coming permission, sir, all protocol observed. With the issue of genetically modified organism. Perhaps probably you may get more information when we sit one-on-one with you, but I would like to assure you that whatever trait is being used and inserted inside a seed, it means that that trait will remain there. We get an improved quality of Nigerian seed, and then we insert the trait of whatever character, either drought resistant, insect resistant, and then we inculcated it into Nigerian seed, quality seed. So it is not that they are bringing the seed from outside, but we transfer the genetic trait of that quality that we identify into Nigerian seed. And that will make Nigerian seed to be resistant to drought, resistant to flooding, resistant to insect attack. So what we do is improving Nigerian product and then giving it to the farmers. We have done quite a lot in agriculture. We have improved our cowpea, which means beans in local language, and it has been launched and it's all over. And this is to prevent it from insect attack, that is Maruca vitrata. And then we have improved, we have brought in a quality seed in terms of cotton. And now we look at it, we have improved massively in terms of cotton production. It is less yield, and then the quality of the soybean has quite a lot of herbicide into it. So what we are trying to do is herbicide tolerant soybean, and this will reduce the impact of that herbicide in the soybean that we eat. When you take our products, many of our farmers wanted to export it, but unfortunately, when you go outside, they will measure the quantity of herbicide inside that product, and they will reject it. I'm sure you have known that story. So when we produce this kind of genetically modified crops, they are devoid of these herbicide into them. So we are saving Nigeria quite a lot of money, and then we are saving the farmers from the hurdles of losing quite a lot of money from the low yield. So I would like to stop here, sir.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cody, are you satisfied? No, I'm going to.
you're not
We'll see him
satisfied.
later. Okay. No.
Even after the lecture.
Wait, Cody. Take it up with him later. Yes.
Please.
There's a question online for you.
Yes.
One Patrick Oyeleke says, Honorable Minister, good morning. Since the determinant of any country's greatness is research and development, what sustainable research has your ministry done to provide alternative sources of funding for research and development, product development, and commercialization of such work in Nigeria through mass production, affordability, and accessibility, even if we need to partner with foreign countries or foreign companies and organizations? Did you get it, sir? Okay. 2 more questions, only 2 and we'll close. Okay, we'll take 3. Von, Nan, Voice, Reuters, and NTA.
Good day all. My name is Chijoke Okoronkwa, I report for the News Agency of Nigeria. So we are in a fast-paced world where many countries are embracing artificial intelligence. Despite its, it has all-encompassing and disruptive effects. In Nigeria, is there a national policy in place or underway by means of which artificial intelligence will be embraced and regulated?
Honorable Minister, my name is Felix Onoa, and I write for Reuters World News Agency. Honorable Minister, I would like to know how your ministry is tackling the problem of getting international certification for some of these inventions you
actually mention in order to validate them. You had earlier pointed out that getting investors have been an issue, a very serious problem, to get these inventions to the people. So I would like to know how you're going to do it, getting this, obtaining international validation so that they can get investors from home and abroad. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. My own concern is about space science and technology education. How far with this? Because I know that in the past, government was doing a great deal in that aspect. So what's happening to it? Space science education. Space science. In our primary and secondary schools.
And I will add to that, you said primary and secondary education in space technology. I know Dr. Shaba will have a lot to say about that. That's the last of the questions. Honorable Mr. Go ahead before the DG also says something.
Thank you very much. Eminent well, your colleagues are, no, I was referring to him as eminent MC. Right, again, thank you very much for those of you that have had opportunity. The question that you read out from your phone, which has to do with sustainability in funding, that's a big issue. And I think whoever put that forward is always a challenge. But what I always say is that you will never have enough funding for anything. So what do you do in the circumstance? You prioritize. You prioritize, you limit wastages in the system, then you collaborate as much as possible. Because that brings me to the issue. We've been talking about our own SAI report, which has to do with rationalizing. Because one of the things that we have seen in the ministry is duplication of effort, in which case you thin out. So that's one area. In fact, that's one of the mandates of Mr. President to us, that the need for us to rationalize, to bring some of these agencies together so that there won't be duplication or even multiplication of resources, multiplication of the same project. So those are the things we are taking a holistic approach. But I did say, even in my presentation, that Mr. President has made a very powerful statement of intention, which we are looking into how to implement, which is setting apart 0.5% of the GDP for research and development. Now, it is not something that Mr. President can do with an executive order, knowing the nature of our governance system, because it has to come from the Consolidated Revenue Fund, in which case there has to be the buy-in of the states through their governance and buy-in of the local governments as well. So that's a major one. If we're able to achieve that, I can assure you that the engagement is on in this regard. So we need that. I mentioned that this innovative way, the TED Fund. The TED Fund hitherto was just, just giving funding to some of the agencies, particularly within the academic environment. But now it's been extended to the other research institutions that are not necessarily university-based. So that's also one issue. And of course, we also reaching out to investors and, of course, international NGOs and all that, so that we can have a pool of resources in terms of funding of this. So these are some of the things we are doing, but we need to push more so that we can really get as much as we can to fund this, because research is not cheap at all. Research and development is not cheap at all. So we need to get the more, the merrier. Then Chijioke, that's from Voice of Nigeria. Nan, I'm sorry, I mixed that up. I'm sorry. Okay, Nan, Chijioke, right? I'm sorry. Now, AI, artificial intelligence, is part of what we're also working on. And if you look at the policy document on Agenda 2050, it features prominently there in terms of, because you just have to get things done differently now. And one of the ways to do that is through artificial intelligence. So it's inevitable for us to go into that. And of course, we were trying to do a bit of that under COVID, where to do certain things, it's just inevitable for us. So we are also working on that. It's in that document of Agenda 2050. So it's inevitable, and we must do it. Then Felix Reuters, right? I hope I've got that wrong. Or is it? I got that right. Okay, sorry. International certification. It's very important, because if we want investors to key in or buy into our inventions, they must be certified. And of course, that certification also starts from NOTAP, isn't it? So NOTAP is there. So how are you helping us to get international certification? Because that puts us at the global stage and makes gives the demand a wider coverage, so to speak. I think I will get him to say just a little bit, what are you doing at NOTAP? Because it takes its root from the patent registration.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Briefly, please. Briefly.
Yes, actually, it's not the mandate of NOTAP to patent other people's technology. We saw a gap. And for us to fill the gap, for us to commercialize our research and development, which is a private sector-driven affair, the intellectual asset must be protected. I quite agree with you now. Even after protecting what is developed locally, we have to escalate it to protect it outside the country. That would attract investors. There is a heavy amount of money we have to pay. With our meager income in terms of budgetary provisions, we may not be able to do it for now. But it's an excellent advice, and hopefully when we come to budget at the ministry level, provisions of fund could be made for us to escalate it to the international level. Thank you, sir.
I will have left by then.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Now, NTA, Diron, right? Jide. Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you very much for your question, which has to do with what the ministry is doing regarding space science education, especially for the younger ones. Thank you very much. You recall that I did say in my presentation that we're making this thing inclusive, that is bringing everybody on board. I was privileged to be in Istanbul just about 3 weeks ago, to be part of this tech festival. And one of the things that struck me, the fact that children, the in large numbers. It's one of the biggest, technology festivals, in the world, because it's now, and they were being guided. So it's to get them to be interested at that young age. Children are highly impressionable. And we are doing our own bit in that regard as well. And don't forget, that's why we have this collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Education. We can talk of STEM education, science, tech, engineering, mathematics, and all that. And once you're able to stimulate the interest of these children from that young age, then they tend to key into these things. And we are doing that. We also participate on a global level. You have what we call this World Science Day. And on that day, we get these school children from around Abuja. We bring them together, and they have presentations, lectures on basic sciences. That's one of the ways. And I did say too in my presentation that we already have a PPP project in place now that has to do with the planetarium and the space museum, which we're already working on it because we have already signed the MOU, and it's already, well, maybe the DG Space himself will talk more. But I'm saying that your concerns are well noted, and we're already working on that as well, because we need to, it's like catch them young situation, that as much as possible, just inculcate that, in their psyche, and then they grow with it, and then they get interested and all that. Now, I'm also aware that we have this women in engineering and all that, science, upwind, yes, who are also doing a lot, going to the schools to really get these children interested in the sciences generally, and science, technology, mathematics and all that. They're doing that. So these are some of the ways to bring inclusivity into this science and tech, because it's not just in the future, it's already now. It's already now. There's talk of smart everything now. Everybody needs to be smart, everything has to be smart. Smartphone, smart houses, smart vehicle, smart cities.
Smart buses. Are you satisfied with the progress you've made with space technology?
Well, you see, you can't be satisfied until you see certain things done. That's why, again, I said in my presentation that our steps may be slow, but surely they are steady. I'm aware, within the short period that's been in the ministry, the gigantic ideas of NASA. But the limitation is the funding. We will have been able to do more, because there has to be conscious effort by government to really appreciate that, look, this is where to go. And then we commit to it with greater vigor. That is the thing. How much? It's a drop in the ocean. It's a drop, and I mean a drop, tiny drop for that matter, when it comes to research and development. Please, Shaba, please come and do more on this.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Shaba.
Curriculum for secondary school education. It will be heartwarming to know that just yesterday we received an announcement from South Africa that the University of Calabar law students are going to represent the whole of Africa in my friend large competition because they came first. And this is because we go through the same educating people about space. That notwithstanding, we also have Institute of Space Science and Engineering, which was established a few years ago, which is also partnering with AUST to award master's degree. And you will remember that we have African Regional Center for Space Science and Education. And what we started with was postgraduate diploma. Today, it is awarding masters, and we also have PhD students on ground. And all these are just to increase space education. Now, most people speak about figures, and I think even the figures you are quoting, which is you are calling 3 billion, I think it goes beyond that. When you speak about it, you are speaking about 7 billion, if you go back to the figures. Now, people look at the figures without looking at what these figures are for, because you don't check to see, are they constituency projects? What are they for? What is meant for research out of all of that is less than 800 million. And if you put that in research, I can tell you that even building an engineering lab, you cannot build a small engineering lab with small figures of that nature. So I always say that when we look at budgets, we should look beyond the figures. We should look at what the figures are supposed to attain. Building satellites is not something that you pick off the scale, off the shelf. Now, in building each satellite, you need to put your engineers on that. For example, I'll give you an instance. When we speak about the orbiting our satellites, we speak about the orbiting of satellite. There has never been any allocation for the orbiting satellite. In the orbiting satellite, you need 24 engineers to be on ground so that the orbiting is going to do. Remember, the dream of Nigerians is to build Nigerian satellite on Nigerian soil and also launch it on Nigerian soil. So education all through the line, training all through the line is essential. And these things are not things that are made available within the budget. There are constraints within the budget because satellites cannot be built, and I repeat, within the normal budgetary allocations, considering the amount of money that is required to have a satellite in orbit. And again, it will not look wise for you to have only one satellite, especially when you are dealing with communication in orbit, because if anything happens, there is a need for you to migrate those who are benefiting from this satellite to another satellite. And you don't have to migrate them to where you have to pay because the cost may be higher. Nigeria being, Africa being the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy, you would believe that when it comes to Africa, Nigeria is the big brother. You asked my honorable minister if he was satisfied with where we are. And I said, we in the space arena, we are satisfied with where we are because no country in Africa is doing space like we are doing. We cover all aspects of space. And that's why we said that we are the premium space agency of Africa. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much, DG. So, when you've listened to the man who should know better, now he says he's satisfied with where they're. It's a matter of expectation. I know the capacity of NASA. But I'm saying within the ambit of its capacity, you haven't seen much at all. That is, I'm saying that we are NASA to have the kind of funding, then they will not be where they are right now because of the capacity that I know exists in that place. So it's within that context that I said, I am not yet satisfied. Okay? But having said that, maybe I should say on a lighter note that I will rather continue greater engagement with terrestrial bodies than moving to the celestial bodies. It's because the terrestrial bodies like you, I can see you, I can interact with you. But the moment you start going into the realm of the celestial, well, maybe it's the likes of Shaba that know what is going on there. Thank you very much on that note.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and your very able team. I think it would be a matter of joy and pride for all Nigerians. You know, I've read through the presentation he just made. I think that its conveyance to Nigerians will engender that sense of pride, that happiness that we're doing so much, in this area. The great work you people are doing, it's clear that you're already impressing not only Nigerians but the entire world. And we're hoping that the future will even be greater than the present. We thank you for all of you, the team, unleashing this innovation and technological boom in the country. What is left is it has to be conveyed to the Nigerian people. They must know what is going on. And my thinking is, given all of these successes, maybe, Minister, quality of reporting that you have in the State House here, I think that they can throw big spot. DGNBRRI is here. Dr. Felicia Enwezo, DGNITR. Engineer Olayende Joseph, DGECN. We have Professor PC Onyenekwe, DG Shetsko. Professor Abdullahi Mustafa, DG NABDA. And Dr. Peter Obode, DG PRODA. These ones, I went to cover them when they launched beer that they patented. Yeah, Nigeria made the beer. They patented to one brewery, IBBI in Elisha, as a reporter. I don't know whether that brewery is still, it's palm wine.
That's a different one, Firo.
Oh, that's Firo. Okay, that's Firo. Oh, that's true.
Firo.
Yeah, okay, that's Firo.
Yes.
And it is still here, isn't
She's
it?
there, she's there.
Yeah,
The
okay.
DG is there.
Yeah, that's true. Not Proda. Proda is in Enugu. Okay, Uche Chuku, NBTI. Professor Dang Azumi Ibrahim, that's the one who spoke, not up. Well, that's what we have on the document. Professor BJ Baminas, DG Narikt. Dr. Adamu Jumai Tutua,
Yes,
DG
that's
Firo.
Firo.
Aha.
Yes. That's Firo.
And they were doing Gari then.
If you,
as a reporter, if you cover them, you will also carry Gari.
And palm wine. You need to take
And
palm
palm wine. Yes. RMRDC. This is the Raw Research. RMRDC. Raw Materials Research Development Agency.
Yeah.
Okay. Nkechi Eze, COA, Nick Forst. Dr. Francis Chizia, Director, NASDRA. Dr. Sadiq Umar, Director, NASDRA. Olua Tosin Ogedembe, Director, NASDRA. And Dr. Harry Etiama, PM, C2, SIT.
Sir Henry.
Sir Henry. We also have, among others, the Director, Anyako Helen, Director, SD. And Atuora Albedo, Deputy Director of Press.
Atura.
I think I will leave your team, then let me go to our own team also. And I want to thank Femi.
Sorry, Atura, choose you this day whom thou shalt serve. Because you are supposed to be there, you are there.
Well, I thought when the minister spoke, he also greeted members of the press as my colleagues. So the minister is also here. Okay, so Femi left, he had to go to a book launch. He's always here. And then 2 persons sneaked in. They ought to be here. And these are the engine room for this program. Oge Modi, Senior Special Assistant, Strategic Communication.
Stand up for recognition. No?
Stand up for recognition, they want to see. You see how charming she is.
Yes.
Yes. And then Uche. Uche Ozurumba is working with her. Then Biodun, you call him MC. This man is the director in the civil service. Yeah. And the media office staff, all of you are there. And all of you, the correspondents, we beg you, please, pay attention to all of these things. These people are doing a revolution for this country. And I think that this needs to be taken to the Nigerian public. Let them know what is happening in science, technology, and innovation. Thank you and have a nice day.
I said that you didn't introduce yourself.
I don't have to say.
Who is this man?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hold on. My brother, thank you. Yes, say I want to share too.
Yeah, so I don't know how we'll do it because